The marble floor of the Palms Grand Resort was so polished I could see my own reflection staring back at me. A 62-year-old woman in a linen blouse and comfortable sandals, surrounded by 6 pieces of luggage that weren't hers. The air conditioning was set to Arctic, the way these Florida resorts always are, and I remember thinking how the cold felt like a punishment. Leo was already walking toward the elevators. Megan hung on his arm, her designer sunglasses pushed up into her perfectly highlighted hair. My granddaughter's pink suitcase, the one with the unicorn stickers I'd helped her pick out, sat at my feet like an accusation. "Mom, stay here and watch the bags." I turned. My son was grinning, not at me, at Megan, like they were sharing a private joke. "We're heading to the pool," he said, louder now. Loud enough for the family checking in at the front desk to hear. Loud enough for the bellhop who'd been approaching with a luggage cart to freeze mid-step. "Since you paid for everything, the least you can do is be our maid for the week." Megan laughed. It was a sound I'd learned to hate over 8 years of marriage, high and sharp, like a fork scraping a plate. She tugged Leo toward the elevator, and he followed without looking back. The doors closed. The lobby music, some soft jazz arrangement of a song I used to know, kept playing. A woman near the concierge desk glanced at me, then quickly looked away. Pity. I could smell it the way you smell rain before a storm. I didn't move. Here's what my son doesn't understand about his mother. I raised him. I know every tell, every weakness, every lie he's ever told. I changed his diapers and held his hand on the first day of kindergarten and sat in the emergency room when he broke his arm falling off his bike at 9 years old. I know the difference between my Leo and the stranger he's become, and I know when I'm being set up. The bellhop finally approached. Young man, maybe 25, with kind eyes and a name tag that said, Marcus. "Ma'am, can I help you with these bags?" "No, thank you." My voice was steady. I surprised myself. "I won't be needing them." He looked confused, but nodded and walked away. Smart boy. He could sense something in the air. I found a chair near the window, one of those oversized lobby chairs that swallow you whole, and I sat down. Not because I was tired, because I needed to think. Because 20 hours ago, everything I believed about my family had crumbled, and I was still sorting through the rubble. I should tell you about the night before. We'd arrived late, around 10 p.m. after the flight from Atlanta. 3 rooms, a suite for Leo and Megan, a smaller room for me, and a room for the kids with the connecting door. I'd paid for all of it. $14,000 for a week at the Palms Grand, because Megan had seen it on some influencer's Instagram and declared it the only resort worth visiting. I'd agreed because I'm a fool, or I was. By 11, everyone was supposed to be asleep. The kids were exhausted from the flight. I'd kissed them goodnight. Olivia, 10, with her mother's sharp eyes, and little James, 7, who still hugs me like he means it. But I couldn't sleep. My knee was aching, the way it does when the weather's about to change, and I'd forgotten to pack my heating pad. So I sat up in bed, reading a novel I'd brought, when I heard voices. The walls in these resorts are thick, but the connecting door to the kids' room wasn't fully latched, and beyond that, I could hear Leo and Megan. They must have thought I was asleep. They must have thought they were safe. "Drain the old lady dry this week." Megan's voice, unmistakable. "She's paying for everything anyway. Might as well make her useful." "She's my mother, Meg." Leo's voice, weak, not defending me, just stating a fact. "Exactly. And mothers are supposed to sacrifice for their children, aren't they? God knows she's got enough money sitting in those accounts doing nothing. Your father left her everything, and what has she done with it? Nothing. She just sits in that big house alone." Aunt Patricia says, "Patricia's right. Your mother's selfish. She always has been. But don't worry, baby. Derek's got the paperwork almost ready. Once we get back home, we start phase 2. Phase 2. I sat frozen in the dark, my book forgotten in my lap. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. Then I heard Leo laugh. My son, my only child. The baby I'd held in the delivery room while Harold cried happy tears. Operation Golden Years, he said. Derek's got a sick sense of humor. I didn't sleep that night. At 3 a.m., I crept into the kids' room. They were both sound asleep. Olivia sprawled across the bed, James curled up with his stuffed dinosaur. On the nightstand, Leo's phone was charging. He always left it with the kids in case of emergencies. I picked it up. His password was still Olivia's birthday. He'd never been clever. The group chat was right there. 4 people. Leo, Megan, Patricia, Derek. Operation Golden Years. Months of messages. Patricia calling me a selfish hoarder. Derek explaining how power of attorney works. Megan sending articles about early onset dementia with laughing emojis. And Leo, my Leo, typing things like, "She won't even see it coming, and Dad should have left it to me anyway." The draft document was in his email, Derek's letterhead. Petition for conservatorship. My name typed neatly in the spaces provided. I read it all. Then I put the phone back exactly where I found it, walked back to my room, and sat in the dark until sunrise. By morning, I had made my decision. Now I sat in the lobby, watching my reflection in that cold marble floor. The woman looking back at me didn't seem broken. She seemed awake. For the first time in 5 years, maybe longer, I knew exactly what I was going to do. I stood up, smoothed my blouse, and walked toward the front desk. Before we continue the story, leave a like and comment your age and where you're watching from. I'd love to see how far this story has reached. The receptionist's name was Daniela. She had dark hair pulled back in a sleek bun and the kind of professional smile that never quite reached her eyes. I'd noticed her when we checked in the night before. Efficient, polite, forgettable. The perfect witness. "Good morning, ma'am. How can I help you?" I placed my driver's license and credit card on the marble counter. My hands weren't shaking. I was proud of that. "My name is Clara Mitchell. I'm the primary guest for reservations under this card. Rooms 412, 414, and 416. I'd like to cancel rooms 414 and 416 immediately and receive a full refund to my card." Daniela's fingers paused over the keyboard. "I see, and the guests currently in those rooms are my son and daughter-in-law. They won't be needing the accommodations." She hesitated. I watched her face cycle through confusion, then caution, then something else, a flicker of understanding. Working the front desk of a luxury resort, she must have seen 100 family dramas, divorces announced in lobbies, affairs discovered, children abandoned by parents, parents abandoned by children. I was just another chapter in a very long book. "Ma'am, I'll need to verify a few things. The reservation shows all 3 rooms were booked under your name and card, with you listed as the primary account holder." "That's correct. And you're requesting cancellation of the secondary rooms only, with a full refund?" "Also correct. I'll be keeping my room." I paused. "For now." She typed, clicked, frowned slightly at her screen. "Mrs. Mitchell, our policy does allow the primary cardholder to modify reservations at any time. However, I should inform you that the guests in rooms 414 and 416 will be notified that their key cards are deactivated. If they wish to continue their stay, they'll need to provide their own payment." "I understand. The refund will process within 3 to 5 business days. Is there anything else?" I almost smiled. "No, Daniela. That will be all." She handed back my cards, and then, so small I might have imagined it, she gave me a single nod. Not professional, personal, like she knew exactly what I was doing and she approved. I walked away from that counter feeling lighter than I had in years. My suitcase was small, just a carry-on really. 2 changes of clothes, my medications, a novel, and my toiletries. Everything else, the large bags, the gifts I'd bought for the grandchildren, the new sundress I'd purchased specifically for this trip, remained piled by the lobby chairs where Leo had left me, standing like a servant. Let them deal with it. Let them explain to Olivia why Grandma's suitcase is there, but Grandma isn't. I walked out the front entrance into the Florida heat. After the aggressive air conditioning, the humidity felt like walking into a warm bath. I could smell the ocean, salt and seaweed, mixing with the exhaust from the valet station. My phone buzzed in my purse. I pulled it out. Patricia. How's the vacation? Leo says the resort is gorgeous. Send pictures. I stared at the message for a long moment. My sister, 68 years old. We'd shared a bedroom growing up, fought over dolls and boys and who got the bigger slice of cake. When our mother died, I'd held Patricia's hand at the funeral and promised we'd always have each other. And all along, she'd been whispering poison into my son's ear. I deleted the message without responding and opened my browser. The Sandpiper Inn was 22 minutes away according to the map. I'd researched it months ago, back when I first started noticing things. The way Leo talked about money, the questions about estate planning, the brochures about assisted living that Megan left accidentally at my house. Harold always said, "Clara, hope for the best, but book a backup hotel." He never actually said that, but he would have. I called for a car service, not the resort's, my own account, and waited in the shade of a palm tree. A family walked past, laughing. Mother, father, 2 teenage kids arguing about where to eat lunch. Normal, happy. I wondered if they knew how lucky they were. The car arrived in 12 minutes. A clean black sedan, driver named George, didn't ask questions. The best kind of driver. "The Sandpiper Inn, please." "Yes, ma'am." I watched the Palms Grand Resort shrink in the rearview mirror until it disappeared behind a curve in the road. The Sandpiper Inn was everything the Palms wasn't. Small, quiet. No giant marble lobby, no jazz music piped through invisible speakers, just a converted 1920s beach house painted pale yellow with ceiling fans turning slowly and a wraparound porch lined with rocking chairs. The woman at the front desk was in her 60s, like me. She had silver hair and reading glasses on a beaded chain, and she looked at me like I was a person, not a credit card. "Welcome to the Sandpiper. First time with us?" "Yes. I'd like your best available room with an ocean view. I'll be staying at least a week, possibly longer. We have a lovely corner suite on the 2nd floor. Private terrace, full breakfast included." She quoted a price that was a quarter of what the Palms charged. "Will that work?" "Perfectly." She handed me an actual metal key, not a plastic card. A key like something from another era. I nearly laughed. The room was beautiful. White linens, soft blue walls, French doors that opened onto a terrace overlooking the water. I set my small suitcase on the bed and just stood there for a moment, breathing. Then I walked to the window and sat in the wicker chair, watching the waves. How long had this been building? That's what I kept asking myself. When did my son become a stranger? I thought about Thanksgiving 15 years ago. Leo was 23, fresh out of college, struggling to find his footing. He'd come home for the holiday, and Patricia had come too, along with Derek, who was already in law school. I remembered the kitchen. I was basting the turkey. Patricia was beside me, lowering her voice like she was sharing a secret. "You know, Clara, Leo was telling me he's worried about his future. He feels like Harold controls everything, the money, the decisions. He said he doesn't feel like he has any independence." "Leo said that?" "He's too proud to tell you himself, but I think it hurts him, Clara. Watching you and Harold make all the decisions while he gets nothing." I'd believed her. I'd talked to Harold that night, and we'd given Leo money to start his first business. $20,000. A gift, we said, to help him feel like a man. The business failed in 18 months, but the pattern was set. Leo learned that if he went through Patricia, the money would flow. I'd been so blind. I pulled out my phone now and opened my photos. Not the pictures of grandchildren and sunsets. A hidden folder, password protected, screenshots, dozens of them. The group chat, the emails, the draft power of attorney documents, Derek's notes about establishing a pattern of cognitive decline, Megan's texts to her mother about the inheritance. I'd saved everything. Clara Mitchell didn't survive 35 years of marriage and 5 years of widowhood by being stupid. I survived by paying attention, by keeping records, by never letting anyone see how much I truly understood. My phone buzzed again. Leo this time. I didn't answer. Let him wonder. Let him sweat. Let him stand in that lobby with his deactivated keycard and realize, for the first time in his spoiled life, that his mother was not a maid. I was the woman who held the keys. The pool at the Palms Grand Resort had a swim-up bar, a waterfall feature, and lounge chairs that cost more than some people's monthly rent. Leo Mitchell had spent 2 hours there with his wife, drinking $14 piña coladas and laughing about how smoothly everything was going. She didn't even fight back, Megan said, adjusting her bikini top. Just stood there like a kicked dog. That's Mom. She's always been passive. Leo took another sip of his drink, the rum warming his chest. By the end of the week, she'll be so beaten down she'll sign anything Derek puts in front of her. Your aunt was right. She's weak. Always has been. They'd laughed. They'd ordered another round. They'd taken selfies for Instagram. Family vacation, living our best life, blessed and grateful. Now, Leo stood in front of room 414, his keycard pressed against the reader for the 4th time, watching the little light flash red, 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 red. It's not working. He turned to Megan, who was already flushed with sunburn and irritation. The stupid card isn't working. Try mine. Red. What the hell? Megan banged on the door. Hello? Is someone in there? Silence. They went to the front desk. Daniela was still there, her professional smile firmly in place. Leo didn't notice the slight change in her eyes, the way she looked at him like she was watching a car crash in slow motion. There's something wrong with our keycards. Room 414, Daniela typed, clicked, and then she paused. I see. Mr. Mitchell, it appears the reservation for rooms 414 and 416 has been canceled. Canceled? That's impossible. We just checked in last night. The cancellation was processed approximately 2 hours ago by the primary account holder, a Mrs. Clara Mitchell. Daniela's voice was perfectly neutral. She requested a full refund to her card and retained only room 412 for herself. Leo felt something cold move through his stomach. That's my mother. Yes, sir. Where is she? Is she in her room? I'm afraid Mrs. Mitchell checked out of room 412 approximately 90 minutes ago. She did not leave a forwarding address. Megan grabbed Leo's arm, her nails digging into his skin. What do you mean she checked out? Where did she go? I don't have that information, ma'am. Leo's face was turning a color that had nothing to do with the sun. So what are we supposed to do? We're standing here with no room. If you wish to continue your stay at the Palms Grand, we do have availability. The rate for a standard room is $800 per night, plus taxes and resort fees. We would require a credit card for the full duration of your stay, charged up front. $800 times 7 nights, plus taxes. Leo did the math. His checking account had maybe $2,000 in it. The credit cards were nearly maxed. Megan's shopping, the new car payments, the private school tuition they couldn't really afford. This is insane. Megan's voice was rising. Other guests in the lobby were starting to look. We were invited here. She paid for everything. She can't just... Ma'am, the primary account holder has full authority over the reservation. I'm very sorry for the inconvenience. Inconvenience, like they'd been given the wrong table at a restaurant. Leo pulled Megan away from the desk before she could cause more of a scene. His hands were shaking as he pulled out his phone. The call went straight to voicemail. Hi, you've reached Clara. Leave a message and I'll call you back. Beep. Mom, what the hell is going on? Call me back, now. He hung up, dialed again, voicemail. Megan was pacing, her flip-flops slapping against the marble floor. Call Patricia, she'll fix this. Patricia doesn't have that kind of money. She has something. Call her. Leo called. Patricia answered on the 3rd ring. Leo, how's the trip going? Aunt Patty, we have a problem. Mom canceled our rooms. She left. We're stranded here with no place to stay, and the resort wants $800 a night. Silence on the line. Then, she did what? She canceled everything and disappeared. I don't know what happened. She was fine this morning. That conniving... Patricia stopped herself. When she spoke again, her voice was colder. Leo, I don't have $800 a night to throw at a beach resort. You know my situation. Then what are we supposed to do? Figure it out. You're an adult. Aunt Patty. And tell Megan not to call me again with that tone she uses. I'm not her servant. The line went dead. Leo stared at his phone. Megan was watching him, her sunburned face twisted with fury. What did she say? She said no. That useless old... Megan stopped. Olivia and James had appeared from the pool area, still dripping wet, wrapped in resort towels. Daddy, why are we standing in the lobby? Olivia asked. I'm hungry. Where's Grandma? James looked around, clutching his pool noodle. She said she'd take us to get ice cream. Grandma's not here. Megan's voice was like a slap. Go sit over there. Don't touch anything. The children retreated to a bench near the window, exchanging confused glances. James looked like he might cry. Leo was already dialing Derek. His cousin answered with a sigh. What now? Your Aunt Clara went nuclear. She canceled the hotel rooms and vanished. The whole plan is falling apart. Derek's response was not sympathy. I told you not to push too hard too fast. I told you to wait until after the trip. But no, Megan had to make her little maid comment in public. How do you know about that? Patricia already called me. You idiots. You absolute idiots. Derek's voice was sharp with contempt. Do you understand what you've done? If she's running, it means she knows something. It means she's suspicious. The whole point was to keep her comfortable and compliant until we could get the paperwork filed. So what do? You grovel, you apologize, you tell her it was a misunderstanding, a bad joke. You get back in her good graces before she does something stupid like talking to a lawyer. And if she doesn't answer, then you'd better pray she's just having a tantrum, Leo, because if she's actually figured out what's going on. Derek paused. You're on your own. I'm not going down for this. The line went dead. Leo looked at Megan. Megan looked at Leo. For the first time since they'd started planning this, neither of them had anything to say. 22 minutes away, Clara Mitchell sat in a cushioned lounge chair beside the Sandpiper Inn's private pool. The pool was small, nothing like the Palms' elaborate water features, but it was quiet, empty. Hers. She held a glass of white wine in one hand and a paperback novel in the other. The ocean murmured in the distance. A pelican flew overhead, lazy and unhurried. Her phone rang. She looked at the screen. Leo, the 14th call in the last hour. This time she answered. Mom, finally. What is going on? Where are you? Clara took a sip of her wine. It was crisp, cold, perfect. Hello, Leo. Don't hello, Leo me. You canceled our rooms. We're standing in the lobby like homeless people. The kids are hungry. Megan is... Leo. Her voice was quiet, but something in it made him stop. You called me a maid this morning. In front of strangers. In front of your children. You told me to stand there with the luggage while you went to enjoy the vacation I paid for. That was a joke. No, it wasn't. Clara watched the sunlight dance on the water. You've been planning this for months. Operation Golden Years. Isn't that what Derek called it? Silence. She could hear him breathing. That's right. I know everything. The group chat, the power of attorney documents, Patricia's little scheme to help you get what's yours. She paused. I read every word, Leo. Every single word. Mom, I can explain. No, you can't. Clara finished her wine and set the glass down. You said I was the maid because I paid the bill. Well, I quit. And since I'm no longer your maid, I decided you don't need the rooms. Good luck sleeping in the car, sweetheart. I'm finally enjoying the vacation I paid for. She hung up. The phone rang again. She turned it off. Somewhere, distantly, she could hear the waves. She picked up her book and found her page. This wasn't victory, not yet. She knew they'd regroup, come up with new lies, new manipulations. Patricia would call, Derek would strategize. Megan would coach Leo on what to say. But Clara had 30 years of patience, a very good lawyer, and every piece of evidence she needed. Let them come. I woke to the sound of seagulls. For a moment, I didn't know where I was. The ceiling was wrong. White wooden beams instead of the popcorn texture of my bedroom in Marietta. The sheets smelled like lavender, not the unscented detergent I'd used for 40 years. And the light was different, softer, filtered through white curtains that moved gently in the ocean breeze. Then I remembered. The Sandpiper Inn, Clearwater, Florida, alone. I lay there for a long moment, letting the reality settle over me like a second blanket. My son had conspired to steal my money and my autonomy. My sister had orchestrated it. My daughter-in-law had laughed about it. And I had walked away. For the first time in 5 years, maybe longer, I had walked away. The terrace doors were still open from the night before. I'd fallen asleep to the sound of the waves, something I hadn't done since Harold and I honeymooned in Savannah 40 years ago. I pulled on a robe and stepped outside, letting the morning sun warm my face. Breakfast arrived at 8. Fresh fruit, scrambled eggs, toast with real butter, and coffee strong enough to wake the dead. I ate slowly, deliberately, tasting every bite. When you've spent 35 years cooking for others, eating alone feels like a revolutionary act. After breakfast, I retrieved my phone from the nightstand. I'd turned it off the night before, and I wasn't ready to turn it back on. Instead, I opened my tablet, the one Leo didn't know I had, and pulled up the screenshots I'd saved to the cloud. I'd read them all before, but something told me to read them again. The group chat, Patricia's bile, Megan's calculations, Derek's legal jargon, Leo's weak compliance, and then I saw it. An email thread I'd scrolled past the first time, too overwhelmed to process everything at once. From Derek Dunn to Megan Mitchell. Subject: Cognitive evaluation. Megan. I spoke with Dr. Hendricks at the Wellbrook Memory Center. He's willing to see Aunt Clara for an evaluation whenever we're ready. I explained the situation. Elderly widow, living alone, showing signs of confusion and memory loss. He said if we can document a pattern of erratic behavior, he can provide the supporting diagnosis we need for the conservatorship filing. The key is getting her to the appointment without raising suspicion. Maybe Leo can tell her it's a routine checkup, or Patricia can suggest it as a wellness visit. Once we have the diagnosis on paper, the rest is just paperwork. Let me know when you want to move forward. Derek, I read it 3 times. Dr. Hendricks, Wellbrook Memory Center, a diagnosis they would manufacture, a label they would paste on my forehead like a price tag. Confused, declining, incompetent. They weren't just planning to drain my bank accounts. They were planning to erase me. Ruth Abernathy had been Harold's lawyer for 22 years. She'd handled our wills, our trusts, the rental property acquisitions, and Harold's final affairs when he passed. She was 71 years old, sharp as a scalpel, and she didn't suffer fools. I called her at 9 a.m. Clara, what's wrong? Ruth never wasted time on pleasantries. I need your help. It's about Leo and Patricia and a conservatorship they've been planning behind my back. Silence. Then, tell me everything. I told her. The vacation, the overheard conversation, the phone, the group chat, the emails, the power of attorney documents, Dr. Hendricks at the Wellbrook Memory Center. When I finished, Ruth was quiet for a long moment. Clara, do you understand what they were trying to do? Take my money. No. Worse. Ruth's voice was hard. They were trying to take your personhood. A conservatorship doesn't just give them control of your finances, it gives them control of you, where you live, what medical treatment you receive, who you can see. They could have put you in a facility, Clara. They could have isolated you from everyone, drained the estate over years, and you would have had no legal recourse because a court would have declared you incapable of making your own decisions. I felt cold despite the Florida sun. But I'm not incompetent. That doesn't matter to people like Derek. He knows doctors. He knows the system. All he needed was a compliant physician, some manufactured evidence of confusion, and a family willing to testify against you. Ruth paused. They were 8 weeks away from filing, Clara. Maybe less. I closed my eyes. Harold's face swam in my memory. The way he'd held my hand in the hospital at the end, too weak to speak, but still squeezing my fingers. What do I do? First, you've already done the most important thing. You have evidence. Those screenshots are gold. Second, I need you to send me everything. Every email, every text, every document. I'll have my team review it today. And then? Then we invoke the moral character clause in Harold's trust. Your husband was a smart man, Clara. He built in protections. Beneficiaries can be removed for financial exploitation or elder abuse. And what you've just described is textbook elder abuse. Ruth's voice softened slightly. We can change your will. We can restructure the trust. We can make sure they never see a dime. What about Leo? That's up to you. He's your son. I didn't answer. Clara, I have to warn you. Once they realize what's happening, they'll escalate. Derek has too much to lose. He's probably been promised a cut of the estate. Patricia's been waiting for this money for decades. And Megan. Ruth sighed. Megan will burn everything down before she walks away empty-handed. I know. Are you safe? Do you need me to send someone? I'm fine. I'm at a hotel they don't know about. Good. Stay there. Don't answer Leo's calls unless you're ready. And Clara? Yes, I'm proud of you. Harold would be proud of you too. I thanked her and hung up. Then I sat on my terrace, watching the waves, and let myself cry for the first time in days. The Seahorse Motel was not the Palms Grand Resort. It sat on a cracked stretch of highway 15 minutes outside Clearwater, sandwiched between a pawn shop and a laundromat. The sign advertised color TV and free ice, which told you everything you needed to know about when it had last been renovated. Leo stood in the doorway of room 7, watching Megan pace the stained carpet like a caged animal. This is a nightmare, an absolute nightmare. She gestured at the room, the sagging bed, the window air conditioner that rattled like a dying engine, the bathroom door that didn't quite close. We're supposed to be at a luxury resort. We're supposed to be poolside with cocktails. Instead, we're in this dump because your mother lost her mind. She didn't lose her mind. Leo's voice was quiet, hollow. She found out. Found out what? There's nothing to find out. We were just... She knows about Operation Golden Years, Megan. She read the group chat. She knows about Derek's documents. She knows about the doctor. Megan stopped pacing. Her face went pale beneath the sunburn. That's impossible. You said the phone was password protected. Olivia's birthday. I never changed it. You idiot! You absolute... Megan caught herself. Olivia and James were in the adjoining room, watching cartoons on a television that only received 4 channels. She lowered her voice to a hiss. So what do we do now? I don't know. You don't know? That's your answer? Your aunt is calling me every hour demanding to know what happened. Derek won't return my calls, and your mother is out there somewhere with evidence that could destroy all of us. Leo sat down on the edge of the bed. The mattress groaned beneath him. Maybe we should just apologize. Really apologize. Tell her we were wrong. Megan stared at him like he'd grown a second head. Apologize? And admit to everything? Are you insane? We'd lose any chance at the inheritance. Derek could be disbarred. Patricia... I don't care about Patricia. Leo looked up at his wife. She's my mother, Megan, my mother. And we were going to put her in a home and steal everything she has. We were securing our family's future. We were stealing from an old woman who never did anything but love us. Megan's eyes narrowed. "Don't you dare get soft on me now, Leo. We're too far in to turn back." But Leo was already thinking about his mother's voice on the phone. The calm, the certainty, the disappointment. "I know everything, Leo. Every single word." He needed to find her, not to manipulate, not to scheme. He needed to look her in the eye and tell her he was sorry, whether Megan came with him or not. The azaleas were blooming when I returned to Marietta. I'd forgotten that. How spring arrives in Georgia like an apology for winter, sudden and extravagant. The trees along my street were heavy with pink and white blossoms, and the air smelled like cut grass and possibility. I'd been gone for 10 days, but it felt like a lifetime. My house looked the same. A craftsman bungalow Harold and I had bought 32 years ago when Leo was 6, and the neighborhood was still considered up and coming. We'd painted the shutters green because Harold said it reminded him of Ireland, though he'd never been. We'd planted the magnolia in the front yard when Leo graduated high school. We'd built a life here, brick by brick, memory by memory. Now I walked through the front door and saw it differently. Not as a museum of the past, but as a foundation for whatever came next. Ruth had been busy while I was in Florida. The documents were waiting on my dining room table, neatly organized in labeled folders. I poured myself a cup of tea and sat down to review them, the late afternoon light slanting through the windows. Folder 1, the amended trust. Harold's revocable living trust, updated with new language invoking the moral character clause. Leo Mitchell, contingent beneficiary. Status: suspended pending review. Patricia Dunn, contingent beneficiary. Status: removed. Derek Dunn, named legal advisor. Status: removed and reported to the Georgia State Bar for ethical violations. Folder 2, the new will. My last will and testament, revised and notarized. The house, the rental properties, the investment accounts, all of it now held in a new trust with independent trustees. Leo could still inherit, but only under strict conditions. Megan was explicitly excluded. Patricia received nothing. Derek received nothing. Folder 3, the evidence. Printed screenshots, email chains. The draft conservatorship petition, Dr. Hendrick's correspondence. Everything organized chronologically, cross-referenced, and devastating. Ruth had included a handwritten note. "Clara, you have everything you need. Make them answer for what they did. Then decide what mercy looks like." R. Mercy. I turned the word over in my mind like a stone. Did they deserve mercy? Did Leo? I didn't know yet, but I knew I needed to see their faces when they realized the game was over. I sent the text message on Thursday evening. Clara. Family dinner, Saturday, 7 p.m., Romano's Italian restaurant. We need to discuss Harold's estate and some important changes I've made. My treat. I watch the responses roll in over the next hour. Leo. Mom, can we talk before then? I really need to explain. Patricia. What kind of changes? Is everything okay? Derek. I'd recommend we schedule a proper meeting at my office instead, more appropriate for estate matters. Megan. We'll be there. I didn't respond to any of them. Let them wonder. Let them strategize. Let them walk into that restaurant thinking they still had a chance to salvage something. On Friday afternoon, I drove to Kennesaw Memorial Gardens. Harold's grave was on a small hill overlooking a pond. We'd chosen the spot together, back when he was first diagnosed, and we were trying to be practical about impractical things. He'd said he wanted to watch the ducks. I'd said he was being morbid. He'd laughed and kissed my forehead and told me that death was only morbid if you let it be. I brought yellow roses, his favorite, and sat on the bench beside his headstone. Harold James Mitchell, I read aloud, though I knew every word by heart. Beloved husband, father, and friend, 1955-2020. Still waters run deep. I'd chosen that inscription. It was something his mother used to say about him. Harold was never loud, never flashy. He watched. He listened. He understood things that other people missed, like me. I found out what they were planning, I said to the granite. Leo and Patricia and that snake Derek. They were going to take everything, Harold. They were going to put me in a home and tell everyone I'd lost my mind. The wind moved through the trees. A duck landed on the pond with a soft splash. I stopped them. I have evidence. Ruth helped me change everything, the trust, the will, all of it. I paused, feeling the familiar ache in my chest. But I don't know what to do about Leo. He's our son, our only child, and he was going to betray me. No answer. There never was. But somehow, sitting there, I felt Harold's presence, that quiet steadiness he'd always carried. I'm having dinner with all of them tomorrow. I'm going to show them what I know. And then, I wiped my eyes with the back of my hand. Then I have to decide if Leo gets another chance, or if I've lost him forever. I sat there until the sun began to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Then I kissed my fingers, pressed them to Harold's name, and drove home. Saturday morning, 6 hours until the dinner. I cleared the dining room table and spread out my materials like a general preparing for battle. The printed evidence, organized in 4 identical folders, one for each of them. The trust amendment summarized on a single page, bullet points sharp as knives. Ruth's legal memo explaining the consequences. Derek's bar complaint, Patricia's removal, Leo's suspended inheritance, Megan's explicit exclusion. I rehearsed my opening statement in front of the bathroom mirror. Thank you all for coming. I know you're wondering why I called this dinner. The reason is simple. I know what you've been planning, and I have proof. Too formal. I tried again. Before we order, I want to address something. I found your group chat. I read the emails. I know about Operation Golden Years. Better, direct, no room for denial. I practiced staying calm when they interrupted. I practiced not crying when Leo tried to apologize. I practiced the cold silence I would need when Patricia inevitably blamed everyone but herself. By noon, I was ready. But there was one more thing. I went to my bedroom closet, to the shoebox on the top shelf where I kept things too precious for everyday handling. Inside, beneath old photographs and Harold's watch and the pressed flower from our wedding bouquet, was an envelope. Harold had written it 3 months before he died. He'd asked me to give it to Leo when the time was right. I'd never known what that meant. I'd never opened it. I held the envelope now, feeling its weight. Harold's handwriting on the front, slightly shaky from the illness but still recognizable. For Leo, from Dad, to be opened when you're ready to be the man I know you can be. I'd kept this letter for 5 years, waiting for a moment that never seemed to come. Leo had grieved his father, yes, but he'd never grown up. He'd never become the man Harold hoped for. Maybe this dinner would change that. Maybe when Leo saw everything laid bare, the betrayal, the consequences, the choice in front of him, he would finally be ready. Or maybe he'd choose Megan, choose greed, choose to remain the stranger he'd become. Either way, he deserved to read his father's words. I tucked the envelope into my purse, beside the folders of evidence. Tonight, I would give Leo one final gift. The rest would be up to him. I looked at myself in the hallway mirror, 62 years old, silver threading through my hair, lines around my eyes from decades of worry and laughter, a woman who had been underestimated her entire life. Not anymore. I picked up my car keys and walked out the door. Romano's Italian restaurant had been in the same location for 40 years. Red leather booths, checkered tablecloths, candles in wine bottles dripping with decades of wax. Harold and I used to come here for anniversaries. The owner, Mr. Romano himself, still remembered us. Mrs. Mitchell, so good to see you. He was 80 now, stooped, but still sharp-eyed. Table for how many tonight? 5, please, and I'd like the corner booth, the private one. He nodded, sensing something in my tone, and led me to the back of the restaurant. The booth was tucked away from the main dining room, shielded by a half wall and a large potted plant. Perfect for a family conversation no one else needed to hear. I ordered water with lemon and waited. Derek arrived first, at 6:52. Early, like a lawyer hedging his bets. He wore a blazer despite the warm evening, and his smile didn't reach his eyes. "Aunt Clara, you look well." "Thank you, Derek. Please, sit." He slid into the booth across from me, already scanning the table for clues. Finding none, he folded his hands and waited. Patricia came next, at 6:58. She'd dressed up. Pearls, full makeup, her silver hair freshly styled, as if appearance could armor her against whatever was coming. "Clara." She leaned in for an air kiss that landed nowhere near my cheek. "What's all this about? Your message was very cryptic." "I wanted to discuss family matters in person. Some things shouldn't be said over text." Patricia's eyes narrowed, but she sat beside Derek without comment. At 7:04, Leo and Megan walked in. My son looked like he hadn't slept in a week. His face was gaunt, his eyes red-rimmed, his shoulders curved inward like a man bracing for a blow. He'd lost weight since Florida. Guilt, I thought, will do that to a person. Megan, by contrast, looked immaculate. Designer dress, perfect hair, bright smile that showed too many teeth. She'd prepared for battle. "Clara." She slid into the booth beside Patricia, forcing Leo to sit next to me. "Thank you so much for arranging this. We've all been so worried about you since the misunderstanding in Florida." Misunderstanding. I let the word hang in the air. Well, yes. Obviously there was some confusion about the hotel arrangements. These things happen. I didn't respond. The waiter appeared, and I suggested everyone order. Keep things civilized. Let them eat before the storm. We made small talk through the appetizers. Derek discussed a case he was working on. Patricia complained about her HOA. Megan showed pictures of the children on her phone, as if I hadn't just spent a week being called their grandmother's keeper. Leo said nothing. He stared at his plate, pushing his salad around with a fork. The entrees arrived. Chicken parmesan for Leo, salmon for Megan, pasta primavera for Patricia, steak for Derek. I'd ordered the lasagna, Harold's favorite dish. I waited until everyone had taken a few bites. Then I reached into my bag and pulled out the folders. "Before we go any further, I want to give each of you something." I slid the folders across the table. One to Derek, one to Patricia, one to Megan, one to Leo. They stared at the identical manila folders like I'd placed bombs in front of them. "Go ahead. Open them." Derek opened his first. I watched his face cycle through confusion, recognition, and then, there it was, fear. "What is this?" His voice was tight. "You know exactly what it is, Derek. It's a printout of the group chat you titled Operation Golden Years, along with the emails you exchanged with Megan about securing a doctor to diagnose me with cognitive decline, and the draft conservatorship petition you prepared without my knowledge or consent." Patricia had opened her folder now. Her face went pale beneath her makeup. "Clara, I don't know where you got this, but I got it from Leo's phone, which he left charging in my hotel room the night before you all planned to spend a week draining me dry and testing whether I was docile enough to manipulate." Megan slammed her folder shut. "This is ridiculous. You're twisting everything. We were concerned about you, Clara, living alone in that big house, managing all those properties by yourself. Concerned." I kept my voice level. "Is that what you call planning to have me declared mentally incompetent so you could take control of my finances, sell my properties, and put me in a facility? That's not—" "I have the emails, Megan. I have Derek's correspondence with Dr. Hendricks at Wellbrook Memory Center. I have messages where you told your mother you couldn't wait to get the old woman out of the way." I paused. "Would you like me to read them aloud?" Silence. Derek tried to recover. "Aunt Clara, whatever you think you've found, I'm sure there's a reasonable explanation. These messages are being taken out of context. The context is that you were going to steal my life." My voice didn't waver. "You, Derek, were going to use your law degree to file fraudulent paperwork declaring me incompetent. You, Patricia, were going to testify against your own sister to support the petition. And you, Megan, were the architect of the entire scheme, using my son as your puppet." Patricia found her voice. Now wait just a minute. I never agreed to testify against anyone. I was trying to help Leo get what was rightfully his? I turned to face my sister fully. You've been poisoning my son against me for 15 years, Patricia. 15 years of whispers about how I hoarded Mom and Dad's estate, how I kept Harold's money to myself, how Leo deserved more. I shook my head. You never forgave me for getting the house when Mom died. You've been punishing me ever since. That house should have been split evenly. Mom left it to me because I was the one who took care of her. For 3 years, Patricia. 3 years I spent changing her sheets, managing her medications, driving her to doctor's appointments. Where were you? Patricia's mouth opened and closed. No words came out. I'll tell you where you were. Living in Savannah, calling once a month, sending flowers on her birthday. And then when she died, you had the audacity to demand half of everything I'd earned by being there. Derek stood up, reaching for his jacket. I don't have to listen to this. These accusations are baseless, and if you try to take any legal action, You'll what, Derek? I pulled out another document. This is a formal complaint filed with the Georgia State Bar. Ruth Abernathy, you remember Ruth, Harold's lawyer? She submitted it yesterday. You're being investigated for ethical violations related to elder abuse conspiracy and fraudulent document preparation. Derek went white. Sit down. He sat. Now, let me explain what happens next. I folded my hands on the table. The trust Harold created, the one that controls the house, the rental properties, and the investment accounts, has been amended. Derek, you've been removed as a named advisor and reported to the bar. Patricia, you've been removed as a contingent beneficiary entirely. You will receive nothing when I die. Patricia made a sound like a wounded animal. Megan, you were never a beneficiary, but I've added language explicitly excluding you from any future consideration. If Leo predeceases me, his share does not pass to you under any circumstances. Megan stood up so fast, she knocked over her water glass. You can't do this. We'll contest it. You'll lose. Harold's trust includes a moral character clause specifically designed to remove beneficiaries who engage in financial exploitation or elder abuse. What you planned is textbook elder abuse. Any court in Georgia will enforce the removal. Megan looked at Leo, her face twisted with fury. Say something. She's your mother. Make her stop. Leo hadn't moved. He was staring at the documents in his folder, his face unreadable. Leo. I touched his arm gently. Look at me. He raised his eyes. They were wet. I know what you did. I know you were part of it. I know you let them convince you that betraying your mother was acceptable. I paused, letting the words land. But I also know you're not the same as them. You're weak, Leo. You've always been weak, but you're not evil. Mom, his voice broke. I don't know how it got this far. I was just, Megan said. Aunt Patty said. I know what they said. I read every word. Patricia suddenly stood, gathering her purse. I won't sit here and be humiliated. Clara, you've always thought you were better than everyone else. Well, congratulations. You win. I hope you enjoy dying alone in that house with your money and your self-righteousness. She stormed toward the exit. Derek followed without a word, his face the color of ash. Megan remained, vibrating with rage. Leo, we're leaving. Now. Leo didn't move. Leo! Go, Megan! Excuse me? I said go. He finally looked at his wife, and something in his expression made her step back. I need to talk to my mother, alone. If you stay here, if you take her side, then what? You'll divorce me? You'll take the kids? Leo laughed, a hollow sound. You are going to help lock my mother in a nursing home and steal everything she has. You think I don't know what kind of person that makes you? Megan's mask finally cracked. Underneath was something ugly and desperate. Everything I did was for us, for our family, for our future. No, everything you did was for you. For a long moment, they stared at each other. Then Megan grabbed her purse and walked out without another word. The restaurant was quiet. Other diners had been watching, of course. Let them. I was beyond caring. Leo and I sat alone in the booth, the debris of the confrontation scattered around us. Overturned glasses, abandoned folders, napkins crumpled like surrender flags. "Mom." His voice was barely a whisper. "I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry." "I know. I don't know how to make this right. I don't know if I can." I reached into my purse and pulled out the envelope. Harold's handwriting. Leo's name. "Your father wrote this before he died. He asked me to give it to you when you were ready." I placed it on the table between us. "I've been waiting 5 years. I don't know if you're ready now, but I think you need to read it." Leo picked up the envelope with trembling hands. He opened it carefully, like it might crumble to dust, and unfolded the letter inside. I watched his face as he read. The tears came first, then the sobs, deep, wrenching sounds that he tried to muffle with his hand. By the time he finished, he was shaking. Dad knew. He looked up at me, devastated. He knew I was losing myself. He saw it happening. "He loved you, Leo. We both did. We both do. How can you still love me after what I did? Because you're my son. Because I changed your diapers and held your hand and sat with you when you were scared of the dark. Because love isn't something you turn off when people disappoint you." I reached across the table and took his hand. "But love isn't the same as trust. Trust has to be earned, and right now, I don't trust you at all." He nodded, accepting it. "Here's what I'm offering, Leo. One chance, not forgiveness. That comes later maybe if you earn it. But a chance." I squeezed his hand. "Divorce Megan. Cut ties with Patricia and Derek. Find a therapist, a real one, not someone Derek recommends. Start rebuilding yourself into the man your father believed you could be. And if I do all that, then we try, slowly, carefully. I let you back into my life, into your children's lives, with my supervision. We see if the son I raised is still in there somewhere. And if I don't, then this is goodbye." Leo was quiet for a long time. The restaurant had mostly emptied. Mr. Romano was watching from the kitchen doorway, pretending not to. Finally, Leo spoke. "I'll do it, all of it, whatever it takes." He met my eyes. "I don't want to lose you, Mom. I can't." "Then don't." We sat there in silence, my hand still holding his. It wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't reconciliation. It was something smaller and more fragile, a crack in the wall, a sliver of light. I drove home alone that night. The azaleas were still blooming along my street. The magnolia tree Harold and Leo had planted was budding. The porch light was on, the way I always left it, even though no one was coming home. I parked in the driveway and sat for a moment, letting the quiet wash over me. This wasn't a fairy tale. There was no happily ever after waiting for me inside that house. Leo would struggle. He might fail. Megan would fight the divorce. Patricia would spread poison until her dying breath. Derek would probably survive the bar complaint with nothing more than a reprimand. But I had survived too. I had walked into a trap and walked out with my dignity. I had faced down the people who tried to erase me and made them answer for what they'd done. I had given my son one final chance, not because he deserved it, but because I wasn't ready to give up on him completely. Harold would have understood. Harold always understood. I got out of the car and walked to the front door. The key fit the lock the way it always had. The house smelled like home, like furniture polish and old books and 40 years of living. I turned on the lights, poured myself a glass of wine, and sat in Harold's chair by the window. Tomorrow, I would start rebuilding. Tonight, I would rest. For the first time in longer than I could remember, I felt like myself again. Not someone's mother, not someone's victim, not someone's maid, just Clara. And Clara was enough.